It comes every 27 years, in search of new victims to consume, from a bizarre dimension existing outside of our own. When it came to planet Earth to feed, its favorite disguise was that of a colorful and wisecracking circus clown. We cannot comprehend it, for we do not understand its true intentions. What we do know is that it wants to feed. It, or more commonly referred to as Pennywise the Dancing Clown, was the main antagonist of Stephen King's novel, It, as well as the miniseries and 2017 remake of the same name. His inception into the media gave countless kids in the 90s nightmares for weeks, and the same can even be said for some adults. Being one of Stephen King's most beloved adaptations by the masses, the story of the Losers Club, a group of kids, misfits, social outcasts, who encounter the creature, and their bout with it holds a very special place in many people's hearts. However, there is a portion of people who never read the book and only watched the film adaptation, so their understanding of what it is very superficial. So what is it? Well, to put it in perspective, it was a mysterious evil being from an unknown realm/dimension outside the regions of space. It exists in an undiscovered void, not visible to the human eye, known as the macroverse. It is not the only creature to exist outside our universe. Like most forces of duality, it is not the sole entity that exists in the macroverse. Its natural enemy is a giant turtle living in the macroverse. The turtle, known as Maturin in the Dark Tower series, is a being of creation, the complete opposite of it. The series also suggests that Maturin and it are creations of another omnipotent being, referred to as the Other. And in short, the two entities are locked in an ever-going struggle between consumption and creation. Hence why it is also known as the Destroyer of Worlds. Its real name, if it even has one, is unknown, but it goes by many in the novel. Some of its names include It, Pennywise, Robert Bob Gray, Children, and the above-mentioned Destroyer of Worlds. It simply adopts different names, which are more accurate to its current form. At several points in the novel, it claims that its real name is Robert Gray. However, the kids who encounter it later dub the creature It. Furthermore, the gender of the entity is unknown. It is widely speculated and accepted that it is male. However, by the end of the book, it takes the form of a giant female spider. Even still, that is not its true form. So what does it look like? No one really knows. The form the creature takes varies, as it has the power to change at will. Like stated earlier, the form it takes at the end of the novel, the giant female spider, is not its true form. It is merely the closest the human mind can come to understanding what it actually looks like. Its true form remains in a realm beyond the physical, a realm it dubs the Deadlights. So what can it do? Its powers range from shapeshifting, creating illusions, partial invisibility, regeneration, telepathy, teleportation, fluoricide, telekinesis, control over the weather, and photokinesis. In the novel, it demonstrates its ability to shapeshift several times, taking on several forms. The list goes as followed: Pennywise the Dancing Clown, George Denbrough, Bill's brother, Dorsey Carcrin's reanimated corpse, the creature from the Black Lagoon, a giant bird, a werewolf, a diseased homeless man, Alvin Marsh, Beverly's abusive father, a swarm of winged leeches, a swarm of piranhas, the shark from Jaws, Dracula, Tony Tracker, manager of a trucking depot in Derry, Greta Bowie, a female classmate of the Losers in 1950, Patrick Hockstetter's decomposing corpse, Frankenstein's monster, an 8-foot-tall Doberman, the witch from Hansel and Gretel, decomposing/waterlogged corpses of children, Reginald Belch Huggins in zombie-like form, the giant spider, and shows its true form to Henry Bowers in the form of the Deadlights, driving him insane. It can also create illusions, which are realistic enough to harm its victims. Illusions include balloons floating against the wind, moving photographs, blood gushing, small but shocking entities such as crickets, a mutant fly, teeth, and eyeball, and can even create illusions of smell. It also has the ability of partial invisibility, as it can hide itself from many people, mainly adults, but remains visible to children. A notable example of this is when an adult Beverly encounters a creature in her childhood home. Only she is able to see it, but not the family or the people around the house, which implies that the creature can only be seen should you know of its existence, or if it decides to show itself to you. It can also regenerate quite quickly. It is not inherently invulnerable by any means, as it can take damage, albeit it can take a hit. In the novel, it was actually shot by Bill in the head, but it merely regenerated in a matter of seconds. It also has access to telepathy, an ability it exploits to transform into a physical manifestation of someone's fear. Like most cosmic entities, it can teleport at will, but to limited distances. It also has the ability Fluoricide. By simply coming into contact with plants, it emits a force that deteriorates all plant life it touches or comes in contact with. It can also manipulate inanimate objects, making them fall, float around, and behave supernaturally with the use of telekinesis. In addition, it has full control over the weather and has the ability to manipulate light. Lastly, its most dangerous ability is the use of its deadlights. By simply gazing into its eyes, it can show you its real form, a form so incomprehensible that it will lead any person into madness, leave them in a vegetable state, or even make them commit suicide. So what does it want? Simply, to feast. Every 27 to 30 years, it comes back into our existence so that it may feast on the children of unsuspecting families in the town of Derry. It is capable of killing any human, but targets children out of convenience. It prefers to attract children, since a child's fears are easier to manifest into a physical form as opposed to an adult's, hence why it targets them more often, and according to the creature, frightened meat tastes better. In this ancient cycle, it murders children in an extended killing spree in the small town of Derry, mainly for around 1 year. Shockingly enough, no news, radio station, or newspaper report on the deaths. Many of the locals giving the explanation that regardless of how gruesome a murder is, if it is not in the big city or a well-known one, it doesn't really matter, as location matters to a news story. However, the novel implies that the real reason the murders are not reported on national news is for a far more sinister reason. It is implied that the atrocities go unnoticed because it won't let them be noticed by the larger world. So, what is its weakness? Well, despite claiming to be an almighty god, it is really not as superior as it claims to be. That's not to say that it isn't powerful, as it has practically complete control over the town of Derry, but that's also not to say that it doesn't have its weaknesses. For instance, the creature suffers from a superiority complex. Believing it to be unstoppable and all-powerful, it often makes mistakes and illogical moves because of how conceited it is. For example, in the novel it claims to have killed a boy by appearing in his toilet and ending his life there and then. Yet he struggles to kill anyone from the Losers Club the same way because it doesn't think it has to. Its irrational behavior, as a result of its superiority complex, lets the kids from the Losers Club escape time and time again. Furthermore, it is a sensitive creature, so cliché inner powers like courage and the will of the heart can overcome it, even in its most diabolical forms. Lastly, one of its most notable weaknesses is that when it takes a different form, it has to abide by the laws of that form, which means it is not invulnerable and can take physical damage and even bleed. So theoretically, if it takes enough fatal damage, it could be destroyed should it not escape back into the Macroverse. It is by far one of my favorite monsters in fiction. It's a combination of Lovecraftian horror, pop culture, and monster mania most people seem to get behind. Even knowing that it is a recurring figure in several Stephen King's novels, someone gives the entity more character, and even makes it more fearful. So, with that out of the way, let me leave you with this small factoid. Did you know, the original It miniseries released in 1990, and the remake releases this year, 2017, exactly 27 years apart.